Thank you for joining us for 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and the personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Ben Neyers, who exhibited his recent works at North Dakota State University's Memorial Union Gallery for the 2016 Juried FMVA Exhibition. Neyers' work includes multimedia examinations in painting, photography, and sculpture. His work is often figurative, with a very gestural mark-making that builds a space for his forms to exist in and his viewers to get lost in. I'm Anthony Ferris, and this is 10 Minutes with the Artist. Ben, thank you so very much for being here for 10 Minutes with the Artist. One of the things that people may notice when they're looking at the exhibition 2016 FMVA is that you have this piece called Anxiety, and it's a framework of a human figure, right? It's actually very clean. The welds seem very clean. It's sort of like a contour drawing of the human figure. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose steel and why you chose to represent the human figure that way?
Well, it was actually originally for a class assignment, and in the assignment we had to choose a body part, and we had to make it out of steel. So for me, I started thinking, I like to connect the material to my project somehow. So myself and my family, it runs in the family, Anxiety does. So I thought it would be, a great idea to make like a torso and kind of focus, like the strength of the steel as like an idea for the Anxiety.
Okay, and there's no head, there's no arms. It sort of reminded me of like an old Greek or Roman sculpture,
Yeah.
that had broken apart.
Yeah. When I was building it, actually, I kind of thought of it as like before I had the inner pieces, I could almost put it on like a suit of armor, so I thought it would actually be kind of cool like that as well.
Okay, and what sort of choices were you making when you were sort of deciding how to define that human figure?
I wanted to make sure that it was very simplistic, and so I paid a lot of attention to which lines I accentuated. I wanted to bring out the abdomen, I wanted to bring out the collarbone region, areas that define the human body and that are easily recognizable, but without too much clutter, I'd say.
Okay. And all three pieces that are involved in this exhibition are different mediums, okay?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you choose a medium for a concept?
Yeah, depending on what I want to do for the piece, greatly affects like what media I will choose for it. As like people who are familiar with paints know, oil paint blends a lot easier. So if I'm going to be doing anything with skin tone or like a sky, I'm always going to want to lean towards oils for that. If I'm wanting to do something more collage-like, textured, I'll probably use an acrylic just because of the drying time and the different things that I can mix in with the paint. So yeah, medium definitely is something that I consider when I'm coming up with a concept for a piece.
Do you feel any constraints, or like sort of feeling like, oh, I should be making all these as paintings or all as sculptures, or do you feel?
I usually just go with my gut, If I feel like it should be three-dimensional, it should be three-dimensional. If I feel like it's going to be it's two-dimensional, I'll find a way to get what I'm trying to throw out there across in the piece.
Okay. And your piece, Night Walk, includes, you integrate language into it. So how do you expect viewers to just sort of read or like sort of interpret the language within the artwork?
Well, Night Watch specifically is a very dark piece, I'd say, out of the pieces in the show. A lot of the language, I think different viewers can kind of put that into their own life. When I made the painting, it was kind of a reaction to a really, really low part of my life. And so it was almost like a release for me to get everything out, and that's why there's so much writing kind of just scribbled all over and painted over and things torn off. And I think that any viewer can look at that and kind of see like the misery it's supposed to represent, and they can probably also get like an emotional feel just from reading certain bits and pieces.
Okay. And one of the pieces that I really enjoy is, and it's funny to say this, I really enjoy your piece, Depression.
Yeah.
But you've made a lot of really interesting choices in that work. And there's these gestural lines on top of this sort of warm image. And the gestures almost look like a headdress in some way, in the way that it's hovering over the and integrating itself within the photograph, but then it sort of extends outward. So can you talk about those choices that you made when you were...
Yeah, that one is out of a series I did about mental health. I shot some of them. Actually, I was given the opportunity to shoot down at the Fergus Falls Kirkbride building, which was unbelievable. The Depression piece, particularly, what I did is I took black acrylic paint and I actually painted on a black and white developed warm tone paper. And then what I wanted to do with the paint is kind of show just like this darkness kind of enveloping the figure. It's actually, my model's actually in the shower in that photo. So you can just make out the shower head, you can just make out kind of a face, and then you just kind of see this big black figure, not only running down, but as you said, kind of like expanding out to space. And I kind of wanted to use that as just like a feeling of how the darkness can, envelop people, similar to when you're in the shower and the hot water, when you finally get that hot water on you. So I guess it was a lot of symbolism, and definitely I was using that multimedia to try to get my point across in like a unique way.
Okay. And then each of the pieces, they are a variety of mediums, but there's also a variety of sizes.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make that sort of choices about size?
Well, obviously, if I'm dealing with photography and I want to use photography as the main media, I'm limited to size. If I'm working with paint, size is, I can do, a larger amount of various sizes. I can do small, I can do huge. I guess it comes down to the concept and how I think it can be portrayed. Some paintings just don't communicate as well if they're not large. A lot of paintings need to kind of be larger than life to really make an impression on the viewer. So it all depends on the concept, I'd say.
Okay. At the end of the interview, we like to ask a few questions just sort of about creative process. So when do you feel most creative?
I never know when it's gonna happen. When I'm gonna think,
Is it happening
think
right now?
of, not right now. No, I can't really. I'm not really coming up with any ideas. But yeah, I don't know. It could be. I try to keep a sketchbook near me, or I've got an Adobe app on my phone that I can draw on. Just because, a lot of my inspiration comes from my everyday life. So I may be in line at the store. I might be in the studio. I might be in class. I might be driving home, and I'll think of something. I never know when I'm going to come up with an idea, I guess.
Okay. And is there anything that you're reading right now?
Yeah, I'm actually reading a book called How to Think Like Da Vinci.
Okay.
It's very interesting. I recommend it. It's a pretty short book. I got it at Barnes & Noble on like the bargain shelf, and it kind of goes into how in the Renaissance they connected art with science, and how it was very well known at that time, and art was kind of like a big deal, and what you can do to try to, start another renaissance kind of in art and science. So it's pretty interesting.
Okay. And then how do you know that you're finished with a piece?
Oh, I don't know if I'm ever finished with a piece. I think a lot of artists would say that. That's a difficult question because a lot of times, I'll be finished maybe for the sake of a deadline, but in my heart I'm thinking, gosh, I really think that I could go back. But a lot of times that's not the best idea, and you just need to leave it for the integrity of the piece, because if you overdo it, you might throw all your work away. So I don't know, you got to find a balance and find an acceptance where you like it enough to show it, I'd say.
Yeah. And then what would you say is next for you?
I really want to head to grad school. I'm hoping probably down at the U of M. I want to pursue my MFA degree and hopefully start teaching. But who knows where the Ochre Creative Studios is going to take me. That's a whole venture that could take me into the future. Who knows?
Okay. Well, very exciting. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Ben, for being our guest today on 10 Minutes with the Artist. And I'd like to thank you all for your interest and your time in listening to the professional practice and the creative explorations happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you. And for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.